Welcome to this Sahara 4 exercise. In this exercise, we will use the 3D window to visualize the information of our project in a three-dimensional way. For this, we will open our Sahara project, and once here, we will go to View, 3D Graphics. It is possible that in the first time that you open this window, you don't see this cube here that represents the three-dimensional space of the project. In the case that you have this issue, what you need to do is close this window, go to Edit, General Data, and here you need to click on Calculate here, and after having the calculation done, you can probably, if you have this issue, you will have a 0 here and a 0 here as well. Then clicking calculate will fix this and will define the maximum and minimum depth of the project. Then after clicking on there, save the changes and close this window. Then go back to the 3D window and click on initialize. Clicking on initialize will allow this to refresh and use the data that you have calculated on general data, and will allow for the cube to appear. With that fix out of the way, let's start. So let's double click here to see it more with more to have more space here, and let's start moving the camera. First, you have three options for movement. First, you can rotate the cube that represents the space of the project by left clicking and dragging like this. You're going to rotate your project. Then another option is to just move it by right clicking. Here you can move the cube without rotating it. So here, as you can see, we don't have rotation, but we have movement, translation. And here you can also use the wheel in two ways. If you just zoom and unzoom just with the wheel, you're going to have a more rough zoom in or zoom out. But if you click on the zoom wheel, you can see that now I have the mouse has a different shape, and you can move up and down your mouse to have a more smooth zoom in or zoom out of the cube. Now let's keep moving with the example. Here you have a number of different buttons here. This one in particular is only just going to hide the properties of the window. So if you want to just see the 3D picture after properly doing the configuration, you can just hide this by clicking here. Then you have a number of menus here that will open the different options that you have available, and you have two more buttons here. This one is going to reset your camera, so you will have the original preset of the camera. If in the case that you move it in a way that is not convenient, you can just hit here and reset. And initialize is going to refresh the information of the window based on what has been loaded on the project. That's why we need to click it when we did modifications on the general data window previously. So let's start by wells. In the wells section, here you can select your wells. Here, as you can see, here are all the positions of the well. In the case of this project in particular, all of them are vertical, but if you have horizontal or wells that have a deviation survey, you will see them properly graphed here, properly plotted. Here I can select if I want to just see one well, or if I want to see the selection of my wells. I will just close the production window, and we will work just with 3D and the map. So if I select a well here and I click, I want to just see the selection, only this well is going to be plotted. To have more information on here, we can click on the name, and the name of the well will appear. Here we can define which color we want to have the name plotted as. Here, for example, we can change the color. In some cases, if you don't see any name when clicking here, you can just select the color, and that will fix that issue. That's how sometimes happens in some projects. Here we can define the size if you want to have a bigger or smaller size of the font, and the different options for the font as well. And more importantly, if you want to see the name of the well at the wellhead or at the bottom hole, in this case is going to use the last depth that is loaded in the project for that well. So here we can select a number of wells as well. If we want to select more than one, we shift as we do always. And here we have these wells selected here in the 3D as well. Here, if we want to see the perforations, we can check on them. These perforations are dynamic over time, so we can see them. We can select which colors we want to use for the perforations by clicking here, change the projection, so we can see them um, rotate around the wellbore, and also the color. So we can use red, for example, but I will keep it with yellow. These are, as I said, these are dynamic over time. So if we go back here, they are going to appear at the moment that they are truly perforated in the well at the date that is loaded in the wellworks window. So it's going to change based on that. For example, if I select all the wells, let's say, and I'm going to hide the names so we don't have that much information, and I go to the first date, no perforations will be made because this was before the start of the project. But if I go to the present day, all of the perforations of the project are going to be plotted properly. So you can see that they will adapt based on the information that you have loaded in Wellworks. So for now we will hide them. Then we have the options available for the structure. Here you can see the different layers of the project. You have a number of options here. In this case, I'm using the selection, but for example, you can plot all the different layers of your project. Here they are one on top of the other, and you can use the option of volume or surface. In the surface option, you won't have any volume, it's just going to be the surface of the layer. If I use surface here, you can see that there is no volume, just the top, the map of the top, in a two-dimensional way in a sense because it doesn't have any thickness. But if I use volume here, we need to define how the thickness is going to be defined, and is going to use either the map of gross thickness, the map of net thickness, or the map of net pay. So you need to have maps loaded for it to work properly. Then you can select if you want to use all the layers, sorry, or just the layer present at the bottom bar, or just the one that you selected. So in this case, we will use selection, and let's select a couple of layers. Let's select the first one, 17, and let's select the last one. So here we have these three layers with volume. As you can see, we are using in this case the gross thickness, and if you look more closely, you can see that the the volume is defined as these little squares here that will be calculated for the grid. So in each case, it's going to perform a calculation using the thickness that you define, the surface of the top or the map that we had defined. In this case, this is based on the on the top of the layer, and it's going to perform based on the thickness on that point of the grid. We can also define which color we will use. Here we are using layer color, that is the one that is defined here in layer data, original static data, and as you can see, we are using these colors here. From C1, this pink color. From 17 is this one that is like a dark brown, and for the last one, this color that is gray or light blue gray. So we are using these colors, but we can use other, for example, other variables as to define the color. For example, if we want to see porosity, let's select just one layer, for example 17, that has more information, and here we can see that we are using the volume and the volume options based on the gross thickness. So we are seeing how thick the volume is based on the gross thickness, but we are painting the surface of this volume as the porosity. So we can see that where this is red, you have a higher porosity. You can also modify this by clicking here on gamma and changing which color you want to use here. For example, we can use green, and now the one that has the more deep green color is going to have also higher porosity. Um, Here you can add references as well to check on the porosity that you have plotted here. Let's see what other options we have here. Obviously we can use this surface as well, this color surface for the surface option if you want. Just it's going to be the same, just not going to have any volume. So we can see now that we have this surface plotted here with the porosity as well, and the green, the deeper green is going to be associated with higher porosity. And let's go back here to volume, and let's go to graph options here, and we have another options, available options here as well. For example, you can paint the borders if you want to have a more clear view of your cells of the graph of the volume map that you have defined. You can use this. You can change the color of the limit of your cells. For example, I change it from white to black, or you can use red, for example, or any other color that so you desire. um, Here you can define if you want to have the face, means like the surface face of each of these cells, have it or not. As you can see now I'm hiding it, and I'm just seeing the limits of each one in their position. And also you can do it instead of just completely erasing them using this option. You can just make them transparent to have easier visualization. For example, if you want to see the position of perforations, or if you want to see the position of the bubbles as well, if you want to have like a lighter tone for your map, you can do it with this transparency option. So I will just unselect this and let's keep working. Now you can also plot bubbles here. For example, if you want to show um, your bubbles, you can select the variables. If you select any variable at the well level, for example, let's plot monthly production oil, you will have bubbles that will be on the top of the. I think maybe it's better to use, instead of oil production, let's use cumulative, because it will be easier to see here. Here we have the cumulative production in bubbles of the whole well for at this date that is present in the map date. If I change the date, you will see that these bubbles will start interacting, and they will start becoming like with a smaller radius, because I have less cumulative, to the point that here this is before the start of the project. But if I start going here, the cumulative of the wells will start appearing here like bubbles, and we will see how the different wells have more or less cumulative. If I do it instead of using, let's hide this, and instead of using the cumulative, I use monthly production as I was doing first. Here we will see how the distribution of the production for this particular month. So it's going to have more changes. Here we see that we have a whole lot of production here for this well, for example, and then we will see this modification over time, to the point that here is in the future, so we don't have any data for production. Obviously you can select different scenarios here for production data. You have plenty of other types of data that you can show here. You can also check on the data at the layer level. For example, for petrophysical data, we can plot porosity and do it at the layer level. And here we will see the different porosities of the layer that we have selected. We can change this scale. Let's make it a little bit smaller, and we can see the different bubbles for porosity. And we can check that the higher value of porosity is also correspondent to the green value of the map. Um, Obviously this is going to depend on the layer that you select here. So if you change the layer, we can see this is a very small layer. I will change this to surface, so we have not only the thing that if you plot in volume, you're only going to have values where you have graph thickness. So I just want to use surface here to have a little bit more data. And here we can see the different layers. Here we have a little bit more of extension, and we see the different porosity values as petrophysical data. And this is useful because you can see that petrophysical data is basically the intersection of the well data and the layer data. So these bubbles represent the porosity, how it is stored in Sahara. Um, we can also plot, for example, production data layer level. If you do here, history, injected water, layer level, total, cumulative, we can see how much water has been injected in total at the date that I have selected for this particular layer. If you want, you can select more than one layer by clicking in control here. let's go for example here and here, and we have two different layers, one on top of the other. Maybe it's better to change the colors of the layers to make it more clear. Let's use, instead of porosity, just layer color. So you can see now that we have the intersection of the different layers and how much water has been injected in the different wells as bubbles. So other kind of data that you can use are, for example, operation data based on the well works that we have loaded in the project, the daily productions as well, and the flow elements as well. Also, you could, if you have production tests loaded, you can also plot them as bubbles in 3D. I will hide them for now, and let's hide this as well. Now, another option that you have available is plotting your different logs in 3D. For example, you can see here that I'm plotting density in all the wells. This is especially useful if you have wells that are horizontal. You will see the trajectory, how it's going to be modified, how the log is going to be modified over the trajectory of the well. Here you can use colors here as well. Instead of using just red, we can use a gamma of colors. Here we can see that the color yellow is associated with with lower values of density, and the blue color is associated with higher values of density. You can change this gamma as well as you see fit. You will see the different options here, and you can plot other things. For example, we can plot, let's say, gamma ray, and see the wells that have gamma ray available and the different values of gamma ray. Also, you have other modes. For example, if you want, let's go back to density here, and let's plot just one well. Let's select, or a number of wells. We can modify it here, selection. So let's select this injector, for example, and we can see that we have this plot here, this log. We can modify it by using this option here, mode, and instead of using curve, we can use trajectories, which is going to show the value as a number of cylinders, one on top of the other. And we can check other wells as well. Let's check one that has a more clear value. Here we see that on the top we have a lower density that is represented by a more yellowish color instead of blue, and it's also accompanied, the cylinder that has been created has a lower radius in this position. Also, you can do the survey option. That is not very useful for vertical wells, but if I increase the width of the thickness of the well plotted, you can see that I can just check on the change of the color of the well, instead of using like an external curve next to the well. I'm just changing the color of the well. There are other options to change the color of the well besides just the logs. I'm going to show now. Here we can see that the well option here, we can change how the survey is colored. I'm going to make the thickness a little bit back to the original size, and here we can select if we want to use a single color that can be defined here. For example, let's use yellow here. We can also use a well color that in the case of the well that I have selected doesn't have any, but if I use, well, the wells in this project doesn't have any color, so we will modify that. Edit wells data, and here we can check the color of the wells. They don't have any. We can do here with this button you will select a random color for each well. So now let's close this and let's select this back again. Let's move here from single to well, and now each well we have its own color defining the object in the object window. As I did just now, we have these colors that are going to be random for each different well. And here I can also use the map window. As you can see, it's going to copy the colors of defining the map window. So if I check on a producer here, it's going to be plotted in green because I'm using the simulator symbol option here. So in this case, it's going to just copy the same colors that it has on the map window. Something that is interesting here is that you can quickly check if a well is a producer of an injector, but you need to select them again to have it properly displayed. So here also I have the option layers. This is interesting because here I'm going to extend the width a little bit. Here what you can see is the position where each well is going to cross the each horizon or each top of each layer. So as you can see, we have different colors here, and each one of these represents a different layer. So in this case, we can see on the top here that this layer is going to be is going to be crossed at this position in this well. This is probably C1, effectively is C1. So if we plot the position of the layer, we can see that the layer is being crossed by that well in that position. So that is going to be representative for all of them. This is especially useful if you have horizontal wells, because it will allow you to see if you are inside a well that you may be navigating with a specific target, and you can see if the trajectory of the well is painted in that color, you are inside the target that you are looking for. So that option is designed for that particular case. For vertical wells here, we see that it looks nice, but it's not, maybe it's not as useful as with horizontal wells. Um, some more options here. If you have faults, I don't have any in this project, but if you have fault lines, fault surface, we will do an exercise on that later. You can check them here with this option, and that should be everything for these options here. The only option that is left, I will change the width again here. And sorry, this is not. This is the size of the names. The wells thickness. So now we go back to the original thickness. And one more option that I wanted to show you is these ones that are here. Here you can do some changes, general changes. Let's change the color here again. To well, no, to single. And let's use green as we had before. So going back here, we have a number of general options here. You can modify if you want to see the cube or not. Here the cube is hidden. The color of the cube, if you want to use another color instead of gray or white or the one you have by default. The color of the background, here we can change the color of our background. Let's change it back to black. If you want to increase or decrease the lighting, this might be more clear if I add bubbles here. You will see that if I increase the lighting, it's going to be quite significant, the change. There you can see how the lighting is affecting the bubbles on top. And finally, we have another options that are changing the vertical scale, that in this case will modify for all the objects that are plotted the vertical scale of the of this. In this case, it was a cube, but now we have something more close to a rectangle here, so we can change it like this. All the different plotted things will be modified. For example, if I plot a layer, let's say in volume, you can see that if I change this vertical scale, here you can see that now it's quite clear the position of the different steps that define the volume are a lot more clear than they were before. Here we'll just take this back to 1 and let's modify it here. And now another option that you have available is cutting certain depths that you don't need to see. So I can cut from the bottom or I can cut from the top like this. So we can cut the interval that we want to focus on. So that will be everything for this tutorial. I hope it was useful for you. You have seen how we can visualize all the information that is loaded in Sahara in 3D. So thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day.